The background processes in Oracle, the Oracle instance we recall, are defined into two general categories, the mandatory and optional ones. Optional refer to database services that you may or may not choose to enable. On the other hand, all Oracle servers have the mandatory background processes running that you see on this slide. Let's buzz through them quickly. PMON is the process monitor. This background process is constantly running interference against user processes, cleaning up session data, cleaning up caches inside the SGA, and is just generally Oracle database's maintenance person, for lack of a better term. LReg is the listener registration process. This background process notifies the listeners about instances, services, handlers, and endpoints. We'll be getting into what the listener is and how that functions in a future module when we're talking about Oracle Net Services. SMON stands for the System Monitor. This is a background process that performs instance recovery. If your Oracle database crashes, maybe due to a power failure or whatnot, or otherwise is shut down in a non-graceful way, SMON makes sure that the system change numbers, or SCNs, that are recorded in your control files and data files become in sync. In other words, instance recovery takes place. We have to know a lot about that, and more will be revealed in the future. The reason why you see that little N after DBW is the database writer, is to denote the algebraic unknown. You can have and likely will have more than one database writer process running simultaneously. These are very important processes that are responsible for writing modified buffers in the buffer cache to disk to make sure that changes to your data are permanently stored. LGWR is the log writer. This does a very similar thing to the database writer, but log writer writes redo log information to the online redo log file. Remember, in the previous module, we learned that every time a user makes a change or a client process makes a change to your data file, those DML or DDL statements are also recorded in the redo log buffer in the online redo log files, such that in the case of instance recovery, which SMON orchestrates, we can play back that SQL to bring the database back into its proper orientation. Now, that relationship of writing dirty buffers, in other words, in-memory data, down to the permanent disk storage, is managed by the checkpoint process. A checkpoint is where you have a new system change number. The SCN is essentially the clock that Oracle uses to keep its transactions in sync. And every transaction is going to involve a system change number. And when the checkpoint process records the SCN to the control file and the headers of each data file, it ensures consistency across your database. It's important to know that the database writer and the log writer don't do the checkpoint. They just instruct the checkpoint process to write a checkpoint. And there are many, many cases when a checkpoint happens. Every 3 seconds is just one of many situations that would cause a checkpoint to occur. The Manageability Monitor, or MMON process, performs tasks on behalf of the workload repository, the AWR. This is a subsystem in Oracle that's involved in reporting, stats reporting, performance monitoring. There's a lot going on in Oracle, especially in the 12c release, in terms of performance monitoring. And I think I've said it before, there are several people who make their living by consulting with Oracle performance tuning and optimization. And then finally, the recoverer process is responsible for resolving failures involving distributed transactions, when you have transactions that span databases.